Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Bytes. I'm your host, Max Bowen, and let's take a trip to Exorcism Island. It's a beautiful tropical paradise with pristine beaches, sunny skies, and, well, demons. Lots of demons. But I'm sure it's really nice anyway. This new series, out through Comixology, launches on October 21st, and I'm joined by series writer Jordan Thomas to talk about the origins of the idea, working with artist and longtime friend Chris Matthews, and what we can expect in the rest of the series. All right, Jordan. So to start this off, where did the idea for Exorcism Island come from?
When I'm coming up with ideas for the comics I write, generally they come in different ways. Sometimes it can be more of a story idea, and sometimes it can be more of like a visual image. And as you've seen in the preview pages, and maybe people listening might have seen as well, the page number 6 is where you get the reveal of kind of the encampment that they've got on this island, which is all the cabins in the form of a cross with the church at the top. And that was pretty much the initial image I had, was just this idea of an island with these cabins in a cross formation. And I kind of built the story from there, really. With I think the idea that it would be something to do with exorcisms was there, and the idea of just a, a very isolated area in this very striking visual image that was going to be the basis for an exorcism story, and everything else kind of built from there.
I gotta say, I love the concept, like like this like mysterious island where all these like demonic possessions go. Is this your first time kind of working in like the horror genre?
No, but it has been a little while. The first book that I ever had published was called Frank at Home on the Farm, which is it was kind of, to sum it up quickly, The Shining on a farm. So
Jeez.
that was a horror-based book, a British village where a guy who's just come back from World War I ends up very isolated once again, and the animals start to kind of get up and start walking around and talking to him and getting him to do bad things. But yeah, that was like 5 years ago now that I had that out. So this is my first real return to horror since then.
I love it. All right. Let us talk about your main character, Father Gigi Amato. He is sent to this island after a confrontation with a possessed woman. Who is this guy? Kind of how did he come to be, and what would you say, without of course giving any kind of spoilers? What's his role going to be in the overall story?
So Gigi's kind of our the stand-in for us, I guess, as the audience, being he's the new priest being added to this collection of fairly put upon priest exorcists who all have to live on this island, having been kind of placed there, probably not necessarily their request to have ended up with this unusual role of having to fulfill around the clock exorcisms and spend your whole time living with a bunch of possessed demonic creatures who spit and fire all kinds of bodily fluids at you and say awful things to you the whole day through. So Gigi, I guess he is kind of the main character. He's certainly at the beginning. He's our entrance into this world, as it's new to him and it's new to us. He's a younger priest who has recently had to deal with a demonic possession that when we meet him, is still unsure if he believes that that was a real demonic possession. And quite quickly, he's convinced that there are demonic possessions, as he gets presented with quite a large number of them quite rapidly. But yeah, so I guess he kind of enters the story slightly skeptical, as maybe we would, and then quite quickly has to come to terms with the idea that no, this is a reality. There are these demons trying to get through into our world through, kind of, not exactly weak individuals, but they found these potential doorways in through humans. And each of the priests on the island, they've had some kind of damage in their past, which maybe makes them susceptible to the whims of kind of some of the demonic forces that are going on. And once Gigi settles in, it quite quickly becomes more of an ensemble piece, which was a really fun part of writing it, is that we do have this collection of 5 or 6 priests on the island who are all different levels of grumpy and fed up and having to get on with this job in the same way that like I love the first Alien film, whereby
Mm.
everyone in it, they're kind of just working a job and they're tired and they're fed up, and the kind of the extraterrestrial in Exorcism Island, the supernatural element is obviously a huge part of it, but they do treat it as a bit of an irritant, a kind of a task that they have to get through in a quite workmanlike fashion, and that's a part of what I really enjoyed with having a big ensemble cast in the story.
Hmm. And I imagine this ensemble cast will probably dwindle as the series goes along. Um, how did you though? How did you? I guess pace this thing. How does the more like horror elements kind of get introduced?
So I'm a big fan of horror that's a bit more slow burn, not something
Hmm.
where you get everything thrown at you straight away. So I love films like Hereditary and of course the original Exorcist film. Like the original
Hmm.
Exorcist film, very little happens for like an hour. The Shining is the same. Like I remember like sometimes when you show films like this to people now who haven't seen them, maybe like younger, if you've got I don't know, like a nephew or a younger brother or sister, and they sit and watch The Shining or The Exorcist, and they're very slow going. And I love these films, but you do start to feel a little bit watching them with like a 15-year-old or a 20-year-old. Like, oh, this is very different to what they'd be presented with a Insidious or the Conjuring films or something now. So definitely, we kind of slowly give you the horror. You've got the immediate kind of fun side of it almost with the possessed characters who are there that they're dealing with, but the more grand um, kind of plans that are being wrought on this poor group of people are more slowly drip fed to you over the first few issues before kind of the end of issue 3 it really starts to all kick off. But we have a lot of fun building up the characters and seeing them in the day-to-day life of being exorcists on this island and arguing with each other and falling out, and hopefully that's entertaining as well before it absolutely all goes completely crazy in the final few issues.
I'm looking forward to the crazy, but I have to agree with you. I kind of like the more slow burn horror. Like you mentioned earlier, the first Alien. It's a while before we actually see the alien. So I think I
Mm.
prefer that too, as opposed to like like you're like 5 minutes in, boom, something happens. 2 minutes later, boom, something happens. 3 minutes later, boom, something happens. I kind of like the you know ease in ease into it. But anyway, um, I want to talk about Chris Matthews. He is the series artist. His art is absolutely brilliant, and you guys have actually been knowing each other for a long time. But how did you come to work together on Exorcism Island?
Yeah, so me and Chris met at school, and we were in the same tutor group in secondary school. So we went when we were like 11, 12 years old. I think I really wanted a Pokemon card that he had, so I tried to befriend him in a scheme to get his Zapdos from him. And yeah, I guess like as we went through school, we kind of realized that we were a bit different to most of the other kids, and that Chris was like clearly a talented artist even when he was like 12, 13 years old. Like he could draw better than our art teachers even then. And I was always big into storytelling and, watching loads of films that I shouldn't have been, reading Stephen King books, all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, we stayed friends for all the time since. And then Chris went into animation, and he for example was one of the lead character designers on a Sesame Street animated series that came out 5 or 6 years ago now, and he's worked on music videos and lots of different things. And he saw that I was doing comics, and he just contacted me one day saying, although he'd been doing all this work on Sesame Street, he's like, I haven't really been drawing for years because Sesame Street is kind of just shapes. The characters are all just different shapes put together. it's not drawing like maybe he absolutely loves doing. So he asked if I had any scripts that we could work on. And that's what led to us doing our first book together, that was Mugshots, a UK crime book that we released through Mad Cave. And yeah, since then, really, I've got a lot of artists that I love working with, but Chris is probably my absolute favorite just because we're close friends, but we're also both very focused on everything being as good as possible. So we can criticize each other or give feedback and ask for changes without it turning into a big fallout, which can happen if you work with friends. It's quite a big risk, but luckily we both trust each other's opinion, and we're very focused on making the best work possible. And after we finished Mugshots, we started to work on a couple of new ideas for what would be our next book together. And out of the ideas that we sent out into the world of publishers in the constantly changing comic book marketplace, it was Exorcism Island that Jeff D. Bartholomew at Comixology very quickly picked up on. Normally, getting a book picked up and getting the deal agreed and contracts and all these things, sometimes it could take an editor. An editor might take 5-6 months to reply to you when you send them a submission. Whereas Jeff was very quickly onto us and wanted to do this. And from speaking to Jeff to actually having like a contract signed and it being announced that the last New York Comic Con, like a year ago, that we'd be part of the next wave of Comixology. It took about 4 weeks, which is incredible in comics. And so, yeah, me and Chris were always going to work together and keep making comics together after Mugshots. And Exorcism Island was one we're very excited about. And it gave us a chance to do something a bit different, to a crime story, but also still suited both of our styles, the way I write and the way Chris draws. And so, yeah, no, it's been a great experience doing the book. We finished it. The whole book was completed back in June. So yeah, we're excited for people to start actually getting to read it now.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, at the time of this recording, we're just days away from the first issue dropping on October 21st, and as you mentioned, out through Comixology. Um, how are you on release day when it comes to a new project?
Yeah, it changes a bit as you. So I think this is my like sixth series that's been released now. So definitely not that you don't ever lose that excitement for something new coming out, and especially something like this that I'm really proud of and excited for people to see. But you definitely can calm down a little bit, and that you start to realize if at the beginning it feels very much like, oh, if this isn't a big success on day one, then it's not happening. Whereas now you
Yeah.
start to see that there's a tail on these things, and people can find the books a bit later as well. And Comixology, it's a different way than I've ever experienced anything else before, because normally all my other comics have been released in print in shops. So this is digital only to begin with on Comixology, with the potential that we could get it printed with a partner publisher down the line. But yeah, no, I definitely, I'm on social media searching the name, see who's talking about it. With print books, normally that's because you're looking to see, because all the comic shops post up there, new comic book day, here's our shelves with all the new books, and you want to see, have they got your book on the shelf, and you can share that. So I guess with Exorcism Island, it's going to be a bit different because I know where it is, and it's only going to be in one place where everyone anywhere can get it. So it's an odd mix of, obviously it's specific. It's only going to be there on Amazon for people to get digitally, but everyone on the planet has access. You don't need to just rely on the idea that your shop has ordered in a copy, which can be a bit of a problem in the way that comics ordering works with smaller books that aren't kind of, they're not absolute Batman, they're not the new Thundercats or something. So you are a little bit at the whim of, has a shop taken a chance on getting your book in with the hope that someone might see it on the shelf and be like, oh, that's a cool cover. What's this? Okay, I'll buy it. Whereas, yeah, I'm really interested to see how the word gets out there from having a Comixology book, because I guess it's open to everybody, but it's also not got that necessity of like, if you don't buy it by Thursday, your shop might be sold out. So people might wait for later issues and suddenly see issue 4 pop up and they can buy issues 1 to 4 all in one go. So yeah, hopefully people talk about it because I think definitely, at least with Chris's art, so spectacular that it deserves to be talked
Hmm.
about. But so yeah, I am definitely excited and um, interested to see what the difference is of being with a slightly unique publisher in the comic book world.
Yeah, I agree. And I also can remember the days when you'd be like waiting for the new issue of like Spider-Man or Batman or what have you to drop because it's like you said, if you wait too long, it's all gone. So definitely a change in the business. But I want to ask you a bit more about just like exorcisms in general. Did you have to do a lot of like research on this one to kind of learn like how they're done and like kind of the world around them before you could actually write the story?
I definitely did do quite a lot of research. Often my way of researching is to research a bunch of stuff and then not look at it too much once I'm actually writing to kind of give me a basis going in, but without feeling completely tied to what's out there. You kind of want the story to to live on its own whilst also having as much of a basis in reality as possible when you're talking about demonic possessions. Um, but yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just stuff like researching the different rituals that exorcists would use when trying to remove a demon from somebody, different mythologies from different parts of the world, and also just things like because it does involve the Catholic Church and just kind of learning the hierarchy of okay, so a cardinal is here, and then you've got the archbishop and this, and understanding like who has what responsibility, like if stuff was going really bad with this, at what level of the church would would that mean that people would get involved, and so yeah, there were a mixture of different things that I had to research that were all pretty interesting. There's definitely some pretty crazy stuff out there if you go searching around for exorcism related stuff. I would Tucker Carlson, he's quite big on the idea that demons are possessing people left, right, and center. So you can
Yeah.
find yourself in some fairly odd little sides of the internet. But no, definitely just I guess like especially with the films it's been a popular idea for films. And I mean, I've read the books of The Exorcism and Legion, the follow up, and a few other books that deal with this type of stuff. So there's kind of a public consciousness when it comes to what you expect from an exorcism story. So there's kind of tropes you can play with, tropes you can try and turn on their head. And so, yeah, I guess that's the fun of mixing like, okay, what have people done in the real world when it's come to dealing with people when they believe that they've been possessed? And then also, what does the wider audience imagine from an exorcism story? Are two kind of interesting layers to what you have to deal with when writing this type of story.
I'll bet because I think I've heard before that the Vatican actually has its own like exorcism like division, and
Mm.
this is actually like a real thing that they do. Um, so interesting that so the movie isn't entirely fiction. That's interesting. But all right, Jordan, as we come down to the end of this conversation, without giving any spoilers, what's the direction of this series? What can people expect as they go through the 5 issues?
Um, so certainly when you start reading it, and as a lot of the priests on the island keep kind of debating, it's like this seems like a really bad idea. Why would you get all of
Exactly.
these like evil things together in one place? It seems like all they do is feed off each other, and it's not going well. It seems like a very bad decision on whoever is in power making these kind of choices in the Vatican. And yeah, as the story develops, we start to see that there is a reason for why this very bad idea has been put in place, which probably isn't going to be great for the poor priests on the island. And also, just there's quite a lot of kind of there's a male bonding themes in there as this group of guys have to deal with these awful situations and get closer. And also, I guess that there's some themes around forgiveness and dealing with your past to be able to move into the future. And then probably I'd say sometimes when I write, I don't realize until after it's done maybe what some of the inspirations for the story were. And now that it's finished, I can see that we are in a bit of a. It seems very separate to anything that's going on in our lives right now as a story, which it definitely is on a top level story term. I think it's something that if you want a bit of escapism, you can definitely get that from this, and hopefully it's a very entertaining and creepy and scary story. But the world does feel a bit full of people who seem to have allowed themselves to be full up with a certain amount of badness at the moment. And I think probably I was tapping into that whilst I was writing, and the idea of like, is there a tipping point where someone's too far gone, they can't be brought back, I guess might be the theme that if I want to be a little bit more grandiose than just a really fun book about demons and fight magical supernatural fighting and Vatican conspiracies, then that's probably maybe the slightly more the analogy to what we're dealing with a bit now in our society that probably sits underneath everything.
I get you. All right. Well, Jordan, I thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate this. I've read the first few issues of issue 1, so I know this is going to be a great comic. I cannot wait to check it out.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's been great fun speaking to you as well.
All right. And for the folks at home, we've told you the story. Here's what you do. Okay, you get onto Comixology. Okay, you sign up for the account. You get your it's very cheap. Exorcism Island issue 1 drops on October 21st. Get it. Leave reviews. Leave comments. We love that stuff. And of course, thank you once again for checking out the show. This has been Citywide Bytes. I'm your host, Max Bowen, and we'll see you all next time.